Now it's on. That was weird. Well, hopefully your mics are working. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you being out to our Transcom meeting today. I'm Mark Shepard, the chair. We're going to go ahead and just do some introductions. I should say I'm also the mayor of Clearfield and the chair. Let's start with Rosie down on the end, and we'll just kind of go around the room.
Rosie Hernandez, Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Jordan Chandler, WFRC.
John A. Nardone, WFRC.
Joe Smoka, Immigration Canyon.
Lauren Palmer in Harriman.
Dan Dugan, Salt Lake City Council.
Andrew Gruber, WFRC.
Wayne Benyon, also with WFRC.
Your mayor.
Steve Gale, Morgan City.
Ivan Morero for the Highway Administration.
Carlton Christensen with the Utah Transit Authority. And Andrew, this is your intellectual test, and that is that your name tag is the wrong direction.
Well, at least I know who I am. That's important.
That's what I was worried about, Andrew.
Craig Smith, Urda City.
Ben Hewitt, UDOT.
I'm Brad D, UDOT.
Kendall Drenny,
Salt Lake County Council.
Nathan Peterson, UDOT.
Ben Withrich with WFRC staff.
All right, and then we've got some folks online. I heard Ann. Do you want to do that again, Ann?
Sorry, Ann Granado, Salt Lake County Council.
And Mayor Ritchie?
Yeah, Ken Ritchie with Ogden City Council.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Maybe someday. It's predictions.
Probably
Mayor
not.
Rob Daly, Holiday.
Mayor Hall.
Natalie Hall, Bluffdale.
And Mayor Wickers.
Sorry, Mike Wickers, Cottonwood Heights.
And Mayor Silvestrini.
Jeff Silvestrini, Mayor Mill Creek.
And Commissioner Van Tassel.
Commissioner Kevin Van Tassel, UDOT.
Is that it? Tiffany. Oh, okay. Sorry, she wasn't showing up. I couldn't. Tiffany, sorry, I couldn't see your name from up there.
Tiffany Pocock, UDOT.
Awesome. Did I miss anybody online? All right. And oh.
Good afternoon, Beth Holbrook, UTA.
And Mr. Chair, my guess is that the reason that some of our microphones aren't working, we had a large group of students here last night for an engagement activity. They're planning students, learning to be planners. And so they wanted to come and spend some time with us. And they were looking at our maps and giving feedback, kind of like you do in workshops. And my bet is those pesky students left their microphones not charging. So our apologies.
I think we're good. Luckily, we know how to share, so we're all right. We had minutes sent out to us from the August 15th meeting. Any changes or additions to the minutes? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve them.
Mr. Chair, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, those minutes stand. Maybe we should just tip the mics down that aren't working or turn them backwards so we don't keep playing with them. So back in April, we approved the safety action plan, and that made us eligible for the federal Safe Streets for All, the SS4A grants. And we've had several awards that have come through, and I think we're going to see those on the screen. Come on, Jordan. There you go. We've had multiple cities receive the SS4A grants, and it's awesome. I mean, it's, as you can see from these awards, the safety action plan really helps us improve our transportation safety for all of our users. And we're seeing the money come from it. So we appreciate that. Thanks to WFRC staff and the consultant team for accelerating the completion of the safety action plan. It's a good thing. And make sure that we use that. Do we have any public comment today? I didn't see anybody online or anybody introduce themselves. Okay, so seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move forward.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Can I call an audible briefly?
You think you're a quarterback?
No.
Oh, okay.
You're the
Hey.
quarterback,
Okay.
actually.
You're the safety.
I would, I just thought it would be worth noting to the members of Transcom, yesterday, the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce released or unveiled, I'm not sure what word you'd want to use to describe it, their what they call the Utah Rising, a free enterprise vision for Utah's economy. This is an effort that the Salt Lake Chamber and other chambers of commerce around the state have been coordinating, not just to look ahead to the Olympics, but more generally to make sure that Utah maintains a thriving economy into the future. They had a steering committee mainly made up of business leaders, and then a technical committee that comprised a variety of organizations and entities, including WFRC, UDOT, UTA, League of Cities and Towns, Association of Counties, and others. And they released this, and we'd be happy to share this if you'd like with the members of Transcom as we go forward. But I just thought I would note they identify 6 focus areas, one of which is transportation as being a key pillar of importance for Utah's having a thriving economy going forward. And I'll just briefly read this summary to you. Transportation, the goal, Utah will maintain a high level of statewide transportation mobility, including delay, reliability, and transit ridership. Ben's familiar with this because this tracks to the mobility index. And then they've identified as a signature project double tracking and extending front runner along the Wasatch Front. That is not to the exclusion of other things, but as something that's critically important to the overall Wasatch Front as a headline project. I imagine we might be hearing a little bit about that later in this meeting, and you're all familiar with it. So this was, Mr. Chair, I think another example of Utahns positively coming together, public sector, private sector, planning ahead for the future to make sure that even as we grow, we maintain great quality of life and a strong economy.
That's fantastic. I applaud them for that.
Yeah.
It'd be good to read the rest of it.
We'll send some information out.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, we've got 2 items on our transportation improvement program today. And so I'm going to turn the time over to Ben Withrich and let him cover both of those for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So today we have the opportunity, as we're going to review, as mentioned by the chair, this is board model number 2 for the 2025-2020, boy.
It's a 2025 and a 2030?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Chair. That's perfect. As a reminder, though, in the Transportation Improvement Program, it implements the projects, the highway transit and active transportation projects that have been identified in a regional transportation plan. It also helps us meet the short-range needs along the Wasatch Front, and then it provides for the maintenance of our existing systems. So the Transportation Improvement Program is essential, or is a critical component of us moving forward with our transportation improvements along the Wasatch Front. We have regular board modifications. We had a board modification before the Regional Council back in October, and we have one before you today. In your meeting materials, the materials that were reviewed by the Regional Council consisted of several projects, and in your meeting materials, there are 4 sheets of projects, And in that 4 sheets, it represents 17 different projects that the regional council reviewed. Boy, things are moving a little slow today, including me. Anyway, those 4 sheets, those projects, the council reviewed all of those projects and they approved those projects, and a copy of the signed resolution was also included in your meeting materials. And that was for your review so that you know and understand the things that are transpiring or taking place in the tip. The board modification that's before you today is a relatively light board, or a relatively light modification. It has 3 projects that we will review today for your review and for your approval. The first project we have to look at today is a project that's up in Box Elder County. This is a project in Perry, and it's on 12th West in this particular area. It actually is right here, runs from 2250 South, which is known as Davis Street, going south to 3600 South, or the KOA road is what that road is. And what it is to construct a pathway or trail on the west side. So this is 12th West looking north. You can see the vacancy there along the shoulder on the west side of the road. Here's another picture a little further down. You can see, although there's a little difference in the vegetation, the west side of the road is still relatively clear for the opportunity to build that trail along the system. One more look there, again, a little further down the road. There are a couple of locations where there's some sidewalk where developments have gone in, but for the most part, the ground is vacant on the west side. And then here's a picture. This picture here is looking south. And this is on the north side of the project there at 2250 looking south. So you can see west side is pretty much still open ground. This project has gone out and was advertised. However, when the bids came back, it was well over the engineer's estimate. So the request for this particular project today is to add some additional money. There's over 555,000 of local funds being added to the project, as well as an additional 945,000 of the state TIF active funds being added to the project. That brings our total project cost up to $3.9 million. The next board modification or amendment we have before us maybe that was a secret button Andrew controls, and So this next project here is the Utah Trails Network, and over the past several months, the Utah Trails Division has been developing a strategic vision of the Utah Trail Network throughout the state. This information will be used for future projects or future Utah Trail Network projects. And during the process of doing this, the project team identified additional scope items that would be very beneficial if they were to be included in this first part of the process. And that would include additional public outreach and engagement. Sorry for the speed on these slides. Holler if we go too fast, I can go backwards. More data evaluation to support the decision-making and additional local trail contacts in the evaluation. So by adding these 3 items to these 3 scopes changes to this particular project, it'll improve the deliverable for the overall process here to develop a good trail network. So the additional funds being requested is $395,000 for a total project cost of $1 million. Now, the next project also involves the Utah Trail Network, and that project is new. The scope of the design, this is to do a design standards development. Right now, there's a limited number of design standards pertaining to active transportation facilities. So this new project would develop a design standard specific to paved trail facilities. That request is to add a new project for $600,000 to the program. And that would include all of the projects. That blue screen come up real quick. That involves all of the board modifications for the tip for this round.
Can you clarify for me? So that's to design standards for our trails.
Correct. Well, it's to improve design for pavement on our trails so that they've got a process and as well as the way to maintain or take care of these trail projects. Ben may be able to add to that, please, Ben.
Ben, if you can find a microphone that works, look, maybe you have two now.
I know it's like everybody's got one. Yeah, so there are some existing standards for multi-use trails, that type of thing. As our team has looked at the Utah Trail Network, they've identified some spots that they want to fill some gaps in our design standards. And with the goal of for the Utah Trail Network of having consistency, like things like signing, you know, the vision is this is like the interstate system of trails. So there's some additional work that they want to do and look at, you know, what types of widths and striping on certain types of different facilities within the Utah Trail Network, signing, stuff like that. So that's what so when we say design standards, it's to create some additional design standards that can complement the existing ones that we already have for trails.
I just was looking at the price tag on that and thinking, okay, we have trails all over this state. It's not like this is the first time we've ever built a trail. Certainly we have to have some design standards out there. Spending $600,000 to unify that seems a bit, I'm in the wrong world, doing the wrong job. Yeah, Dan.
On the trail side of the house and on the Box Elder Trail, is that going to be a protected trail or is that just going to be a widened road with a stripe down there for bikes or walkers?
That'll be a multi-use, both for bike and ped use, and it'll be separated from the roadway.
It will be separated. It will be separated from the roadway, so it won't be just additional. So more or less protected then. Okay.
I have a question, if I might. It's on.
Yes. No,
I
you're good.
Stole it from him, so
You're totally fine.
I could probably lean over and find this information quicker and faster.
We
Either
trust
way.
you, Brad. Go ahead.
Either way. I'm talking about bids. The first one in Box Elder. You say bids plural. And we didn't have enough money to meet, obviously, the lowest bid, probably. How many bids did we have and how many bids are we getting on these types of things? Because I asked this question at UDOT and I'd like to know how is our bid factors going compared to where they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Where are they today? Do we have 10 bids? Do we have 3 bids? Or are we getting to the position where we're having single bids now with
Well,
what the
and I can tell you
economy
as the
is
city, we're there where we've put projects out that in the past we would have had 10 bidders on there and I'm getting one RFP and I'm left from one to choose from. And then you take that factor, do I do it? Do I accept it and say that that's probably good? Or do I wait and put it out for bid again in hopes that it is? We tried that one and the bids came back in 15% higher than they were the first time, including the original bid.
Well, this could be, it could be a problem of what we're in the economic standards, where we've been since, and we always blame things on what happened a few years ago with COVID and all those things, and in employment and business and how these businesses survive that particular things. But it could also be we're not recognizing some of the businesses that are working together, that they share bids around because they don't centralize on doing everything in that particular project. They'll share the project among 5 different bidders. And so we're getting 1 bid instead of 5. So I'd just like to know the information behind that. I should have just asked you quietly.
And actually, today's a perfect time to ask. We've actually got representation from both Region 1 and Region 2. We've got the Deputy Director from Region 1, Nathan Peterson. He used to be the program director up there in Region 1, and then has gone through multiple promotions there. And we've also got Kendall Draney, who's a program director for Region 2. Oh, yes, and Tiffany, and we got Ben, so we're surrounded, ready to answer.
And Tiffany's got her hand up, so she might have an answer.
Well, I just wanted to, piggyback onto what Ben said, and also, to supplement what Commissioner D was talking about. This additional funding to supplement our design standards is to bring our bid packaging up to a level where our contractors can bid on these types of trail projects, down to how curb ramps work, how they're going to, all of the specs and details that are necessary for these contractors to put together bids. We need to, level up our set of design standards, and that's what the Utah Trail Network is trying to do with supplementing the content into our, standard set.
Awesome. Thank you. That helps.
Nate, do you?
No, we're still trying. Nathan Peterson, Region 1 Deputy Director. We're still trying to find specifics on that project, Commissioner D. I can't say as to how many bidders were on that project specifically. But I can say in general on the majority of our projects, there have been times when we have received a single bidder. It is rare, but it does happen. Currently, right now, with our estimates within our region, with our projects, we are seeing about 3 to 4 bidders per project. And just so you know, our estimates we're not the high bidder or the low bidder, their estimates. We're generally in the middle of those contractor bids. So we're showing a lot of improvements on our estimating capability. I think what you're really starting to see is a little more normalization within the market with our contractors. And a lot of it comes down to, there is a lot of strategy behind these bids. The time frame and how many bids you place out at a single time. I mean, we try to spread different types of concrete work versus asphalt work versus trail work versus transit work. We don't want to hit the papers all one week with all one type of projects. We try to equally disperse them throughout the year. And we really like to hit those sweet times when contractors are trying to fill their books for the next year. And that's typically in the September, August, October timeframe when we really like to hit that. But Commissioner D, I am trying to find some specifics on that Perry Trail, not Prairie, excuse me. I'm just having some connectivity issues with my laptop right now.
Thanks, Nathan. Any other questions for Ben? Okay, well then we need a motion on that, on the board modifications.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. That is unanimous. Well, we do, but speaking of Nathan and Kendall, we're lucky today to have representation from UDOT as well as Utah Transit Authority. We've got both Carlton and Beth here. We appreciate you guys being part of the committee and participating with us. So we've got reports from both. So we'll start with UTA.
Mr. Chair, while Carlton is coming up, I just also want to note that Nicole Bordeaux from UTA is online as well. Russ Fox from UTA.
And Jim
is
Harvey
with
joined
us. And Commissioner Harvey. Mr. Vice Chair, nice to see you.
I had to point you out. The commish.
Oh, and Mayor Gail Kate Becker from Morgan County is with us as well.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just gonna talk about our 2025 tentative budget. UTA is on a calendar year fiscal calendar, and so we're in the last stages and are slated to adopt our budget in early December. A couple things just to give you some context to our budget and some of the what I would call opportunities, as others might call some strains on it, is our increase in ridership. UTA's ridership is up. This number was from a couple months ago, 18.1%, but we're a little over 16% right now. It usually levels out a little more as you get toward the end of the year and school is not in session. But in all of our modes, we've seen increases to that, and all are successful. If you're on any of them at peak time, particular commuter rail, those are very full cars, and we don't really even now do any comparison to pre-pandemic numbers. We're really basically there where we were back in 2019, and but we did reach an important milestone in UDOT's effort to seek federal funding and hitting an 80% occupancy at peak time on our front runner or commuter rail.
Trustee,
Yeah.
those are some pretty significant increases. How does that compare to the other transit authorities across the country? Do you know?
In a 23 comparison, the APTA is the National Association for Transit Agencies. In 2023, we were number 4. We anticipate when 24's numbers, we were number 4 in the nation in increases. And we anticipate in 24 to move up at least a notch in that number. And so as a region, some of our larger counterparts, especially in heavy metropolitan areas, particularly, like in a Bay Area or New York, those numbers are not near as robust. And, they're still struggling with people coming back into the office. I mean, our numbers are reflective of your communities and of the businesses and how their employees are going. One thing that we found post-pandemic, historically we had high peaks in the morning, high peaks in the evening, and more we're seeing a leveling of service throughout the day. There's still peaks on both ends of the day, but our midday is much higher and our weekends are much higher than they were pre-pandemic.
And Carlton, if I might just build on that,
Please.
To note, the utilization of transit is not just based on the transit service itself. It's also based on the land use patterns and the development that occurs around transit. And there is lots of transit-oriented development happening. Residences and businesses being constructed in those areas. And in part, that's because it's what the market is driving. And it's also in part because we as an organization, as a state, as a region, have identified as a really important priority to create more opportunities for homes and businesses and jobs to be located in close proximity to transit, because they're really efficient areas to absorb development. And then, to our friends from UDOT, of course, one of the reasons that UDOT is supportive of transit investment also is that if somebody lives and works near transit and uses the transit system, that takes pressure off of the state roadways as well as the local roadways. So I think, Mayor, to your question, it's about the service that UTA is putting on the street, and it's also about the coordination of land use and transportation.
Well, and then if you look at our average rider being 34 years and younger, and if any of you have a 16 to 18-year-old in your house, not too many are getting their driver's license at age 16 like we did. I mean, I was in there on my birthday and you're just simply not seeing youth get their driver's license at anywhere close to, I mean, it's an expensive proposition, but they're just not getting their driver's license at this stage. And for the first time in my life, I hear adults complaining that their kids aren't getting their license and driving themselves around, so.
Sorry, I mentioned the students that we had here, the planning students we had in this room last night, and Ted Knowlton, our deputy director, was asking them some questions, and he asked them at one point, how many of you have used transit or UTA system? I think he said, Janae, in the past week, and like 80% of the hands went up in the room, which was just notable. Now they go. Anyway, so that was just notable.
It definitely is a generational trend, and which actually speaks to its strength. UTA, in cooperation with our planning partners at WFRC, UDOT, and Mountain Land Association of Governments did an economic study as a follow-up to the Unified Transportation Plan. There were a number of findings that came out of that, but one of the key findings is that for every dollar invested in UTA, it generates $5.11 in economic return for the entire state of Utah. Now, nationally, that number is around $5. And so not only did it validate that national number for us locally, but it also showed some other components of strength to the non-rider, which we felt like was an important conversation to have, and you'll hear probably more about it in the coming months as we get into 2025. Like many municipalities, and I think I heard recently that the state is looking at a sort of modest budget expectations. Our primary revenue generator is sales tax, although we do have federal funds and we do have fare box recovery. We work with a group out of the University of Utah in their economics area, and they've been very close in their forecasting. And while we are anticipating a positive sales tax for 25, it's pretty modest at base, and so that at best, and so that's factored into our estimates this year. This just gives you, as I mentioned, a general breakdown of where our money comes from, and then where it goes. I just note, even though it's a very high number of debt service being 17.6% of our revenue, when Beth and I started about 6 years ago, that number was more, about 25% of our revenue went to debt service. And so we have not engaged a lot of new debt. We've restructured about $1.6 billion in existing debt to the betterment of the agency and to our debt profile. But it's still definitely, but the system that we bought with that debt would cost us probably 3 times that number if we were to build it today, and those opportunities probably wouldn't exist. And so you can look at it a couple ways, but we definitely have a system better, and we've enjoyed it for a number of years than we would have had otherwise. As we looked at our budget, these were key components. We adopted a strategic plan a couple years ago. Our budget's geared toward that strategic plan, and as our staff put together that, each of those talked about how to execute on that strategic plan. Some other guidelines that we've learned in the past, that as we add new service, it takes, if you add new service, it takes another mechanic. If you have so many more employees, you have to add enough administrative staff to do that. I would say we probably weren't stellar at that historically, and a couple of those areas we've had to make up. But we're in a much better place about what new service actually costs. Our numbers are getting better about how we calculate that, and we've taken that into account. The maintenance, we talked about our comparison to other transit agencies. Many of those agencies suffer severely from systems that are falling apart, that are not very well maintained, that are just kind of nursed along. We've taken a pretty aggressive role in maintaining the system that we have. About half of our capital funds go back into maintaining the system. At the end of the day, I'm sure UDOT or any large capital provider would say it's a lot cheaper to maintain what you have than to try to go back and fix it. And not to mention the safety, as well as looking at other capital needs. Just a reminder of our strategic plan that we adopted, and while it seems simple, at each layer of our agency, down to a group of mechanics, they have goals, individuals goal or group goals that tie in to these particular plans. This gives you a general overview of our budget. Roughly about a third of our budget goes back into capital, and then as you look at operations, just a comparison from one year to the next, you'll see some increases in those. That, for the first time in a number of years, we're actually anticipating adding new service in April of 25. That means additional operators, some new buses, the support system that I mentioned factors into that, and we're excited over the next couple of years to be able to offer some new local service. This is just a breakdown. A large percentage of our cost are wages. UTA has roughly about 2,900 employees, and in the past we've been challenged from having enough operators. We've been working pretty aggressively. We've had to change the beginning conditions for new employees to make it more attractive. That new generation isn't quite as willing to work overtime, which we heavily depended on before. And so figuring out that predictable work schedule has helped us. We're currently at about 102% of our staffing, but with service coming in April, we've told our group to keep hiring. It's difficult to find labor these days, and you compete pretty heavily. The other factor that you see pretty heavily there, we're one of the largest consumers of diesel fuel in the state. And so the price of diesel fuel has a huge impact on us. And so you'll see that in our fuel, as well as any propulsion power, whether it's electric or natural gas. This just breaks out as you look at each of our modes. Bus is still our largest provider of customers, our passenger numbers, and so by far bus carries the most. The rails are very efficient for large groups, and so that's why front runner or light rail work well in those contexts, but it's a part of the discussion as we look at the regional transportation plan, as we look at mode. Bus, however, has been a very effective option for us. This just gives you a breakdown of projects and where those, in our capital budget, where those go. On behalf of the state, we administer the 5310 program. That's a federal program that assists a lot of local governments as well as some nonprofits with transportation options. So sometimes there'll be a small town in Utah, like a senior home and a senior center, and they need a van. They can apply through the 5310 program. UTA administers that on behalf of the state of Utah, and sometimes we actually acquire the van and then turn it over to the agency, but play a pretty significant role there. And then as we look at increased electrical buses in our system, we're also looking at the charging infrastructure required in order to maintain those. We're continuing to look at our facilities. UTA was very cost conscious as they bought facilities, but they bought a lot of used facilities. And we're finding some of those are coming to the end of their useful life. Some are really inadequate in the long term, and we're going through an extensive facilities plan to try to determine how to best address that. And obviously, it's a balance between that and new service, and so we'll continue to look at that. We're also updating a lot of our IT infrastructure. Some of those were old and at times in need of repair, and so we have a fairly aggressive component to that. These were just some investment strategies as we looked at, as I mentioned, maintaining our system, enhancing our system. We're in the process of changing our fare collection system. You'll find within the next year or so, much easier to pay for your fare, a much more integrated application on your phone if you choose to do that. We're certainly trying to move away from a cash-based kind of collection system. In the longer term strategy, it costs a lot to collect cash on the vehicle itself. There's other places, and in that vein, we've worked pretty aggressively on some low-income pass programs, both in the social service provider networks as well as individuals who meet the criteria. And then, but recognizing we have high growth areas that are looking for service, and I look to Mayor Palmer. We've having pretty active conversations in his neck of the woods about how we can serve that, and that's in our mix for service in April of 25. Please.
Tell me, because of this slide, you talked about infrastructure with regards to charging networks on electric buses. But what about the maintenance? I know, the federal government, our nation's been running diesel-powered buses for decades and decades. Electric buses are newer. It's not like you see electric buses like you see Teslas or other things. The maintenance usually is not as bad, but I have heard from some of the ground level guys at UTA,
Yeah.
some of the electric buses are having some problems with regards to how far they can go and think. Can you?
Yeah, sure. No, I'm happy to speak to that. We do have an adopted fleet strategy, and in that fleet strategy, I think it's over the next 20 years. Yeah, 2035. Our goal is to get to about a half, 50% either electric or natural gas fleet strategy. Some agencies went full board into electric buses and even some into hydrogen. Sometimes that's been problematic. It's a new product, and every year the models get better and better. To your question though, Commissioner, there have been times, especially in the early acquisition of those buses, where those buses had about a 75% runtime on them between having maintenance issues. And some of them were just more technical glitches, not the actual bus or the motor or those types of things, where historically our clean burning diesel buses run about 95% of the time. So that obviously factors into your spare ratio, and it's one of the reasons we've wanted to go in there fairly cautiously. Having said that, I think we're now approaching 40 electric buses. We getting another 20 natural gas buses. We finally have a facility to maintain those better, and we'll be adding to that aspect of our fleet. I think in the broader scheme, for us, it's a balance of mixed fleet, that they each have their place and they each do well. Those electric buses have great power. I mean, if you're going up a hill, they have a lot of pickup. They run really quietly, but they are heavier, and they're a little wider base. We're not quite ready to have them go up ski service, but they work well in the foothills around us, and where we have the charging infrastructure, they're there. So we're learning from that. We're not getting out of them. We're also not rushing into it. And generally, when we buy a bus, it's a 12-year commitment at least, and so we have to look at that overall long-term strategy. You bet. This just outlines our timetable. As I mentioned, we're slated to adopt the budget on the 4th. We've had lots of input and both with our local advisory council and with the public, and those comments have been well received. And I think with that, unless there's any other questions, that's the end of my presentation. I hope that was helpful. And
that was great. Any questions for Carlton? Trustee, thank you. Appreciate it. And do we have any online? Okay. Commissioner Holbrook, anything to add, or Trustee Holbrook, anything to add to that?
No, I just think it's a really great question, and you can see all of the challenges that we have in integrating the maintenance side, the state of good repair, all of these things. But we are so excited to do new expanded services this year in addition to our existing. So it's great.
Great. Thank you. Well, I don't know, are you guys, Nathan and Kendall, you presenting together or are you presenting separately? All righty. All right, we'll take Region 2.
Well, thank you very much. We'll get this pulled up real quick. So I'm Kendall Draney. I'm the Region 2 Program Manager. Thank you for letting me be here today to talk a little bit about our capacity projects. So I've got on a slideshow here. First up that we'll talk about is our capacity projects for highway. This is looking at the increased capacity along the state routes. So in Region 2, we have 9 projects coming up here in the future. They're at various stages. Some of them are in construction, some are in design, and some are just proposed in the future, waiting for funding to come available. So I'll kind of go down through this list and kind of explain some of the projects that are going on. Currently in construction, we have our 90th South project from Redwood Road to 700 West. This is where we're widening the road from a 5-lane section to a 7-lane section. This is expected to be done next year. So if you drive this, you know that it's been quite painful as this area is very busy and it's well warranted for this. But the expected construction is to complete this next summer. The next project up is our Bangor Highway South interchanges. This is actually 3 interchanges. This is the 134th, 2700 West, and 9800 South interchanges. So this is where we're grade separating Bangor Highway. This is where the crossroads from the local will go over the top in 2 of the interchange locations. Well, all 3 of those locations. 2 of them are going underneath, being dug down. 1 is where the local will go up and over the top of it, but being raised. These projects are expected to be completed next fall as well. Also with that, it's kind of confusing because we have another project, but it's part of the Bangor Highway. So if you drive, it all looks like the same. This is at 4700 South, where we're also doing that grade separation. It is expected to be completed fall of 2025 as well. And then we have our project out just on the boundary of Tooele County coming into Salt Lake County. So just out on SR 36, we've got a widening going on the southbound direction that's currently under construction. That's going from Sunset Lane to Stansbury Park. And with that, I'm going to kind of jump over to number 6, which is kind of the next stage of this project, which is actually coming into the valley, where it's widening I-80, adding an aux lane from exit 99 to the SR 201, and then also widening SR 36 up to that point from the from Stansbury Parkway up. So that is currently in design, expected to go out to advertise this spring and start construction later this summer. Then I'll kind of jump back. We have also on the southwest part of the valley, SR 111 is being realigned. This project is to add SR 111 going from South Jordan Parkway-ish area, going southward into Harriman and connecting into Harriman Boulevard in that area. It's expected to go out to advertise this spring with construction starting later this fall. That is dependent upon some acquisition of right-of-way from Kennecott. It may delay a little bit through the process there. And then we have some future projects that will be coming. That's 7, 8, and 9. Those future projects are the Bangor interchanges. This is starting to go farther north from where we're currently at. It is getting ready to kick off design this next year, looking for forward. This is from 41st South to Parkway Boulevard is the next section that we'll be doing. And then the next project is our Mountain View corridor from Old Bingham Highway to Porter Rockwell. This is connecting into what is being done in Utah County, coming up to the existing Porter Rockwell. This would be grade separating all of those intersections from that point up to Old Bingham. So it is going to be a large project. It is expected to start in 2027 for construction, just like the Bangor Highway. So we'll have 2 major projects going on that west side of the valley. And then the last one I have on here is I-15 northbound from 215 to 6 south. And that is adding a lane and doing some ramp adjustments at the I-80 interchange. And that is expected to be in 2030 for construction. So that's the farther out. That's what we have on the plan from a highway perspective here in the Salt Lake Valley. I know that Nathan will be talking a little bit about what's happening up in the other counties north. But I also want to kind of highlight, here's a map of where those projects will be occurring over this next little bit. That is $2.459 billion being invested into highway construction. It's a large number of things that are going on just here in the Salt Lake Valley, not including the whole state. With that, I think there's some other projects that are important.
Can you back up just for one slide? Yeah, no, go one more. There you go, right there. Thanks. Yep. Sometimes I think I was reminded about this in a meeting I had earlier today by an elected official whose name I will not note right now, but they said sometimes when we as staff talk to elected officials, we assume that the elected officials know exactly what we're talking about. And this was a great presentation, but I just want to just back up just for a sec, just for a little bit of reminder context, okay? All of you know all of this already, I'm sure, but just as a reminder. So UDOT service area is divided into 4 regions as a starting point, right? And for our WFRC purposes, Region 2 covers Salt Lake County, Tooele, Summit. Thank you. Okay, so we don't cover Summit County, but for here, Tooele and Salt Lake County. And Region 1 is everything north, right? Davis, Weber, Box Elder, et cetera. And then Region 3, Utah County, and Region 4 down in the south. I'm not hitting every county, but just so as you're thinking in this room, where am I? Region 2, Region 1. That's point number 1. Point number 2, in WFRC, we talk a lot about planning, and we talk a lot then about long range, and then we also talk about short range and programming. Transcom focuses on the shorter range, the programming. Where is the money that is already secured? Where is it being actually expended? We do the planning work, which looks out 30 years. The first phase of that plan, the Regional Transportation Plan, Utah's Unified Transportation Plan, the Wasatch Choice Vision, the first phase of that is the next 10 years. So we do that broad planning work. Together, we identify what the priorities are for the next 10 years. And then UDOT and the Transportation Commission, Commissioner D, go through the process, and Van Tassel, go through the process of actually programming funding that has been provided to specific projects, right? They do the prioritization process. Those funds are identified. Some of them are mostly that the commission does are the capacity projects, right? And what you're going through now are those major capacity projects. So this doesn't include basically the maintenance and repair projects. You're going over the major capacity projects.
Exactly.
And it's the source of funding for these projects is overwhelmingly state funds. The TIF,
100%.
right? The Transportation Investment Fund, which is mainly state sales tax dollars that go to these projects. Not every state puts that much of its own money into transportation capacity projects. This is one of the reasons, because our state has made such a huge commitment to transportation, that we're able to move these types of projects along.
Exactly. Thank you for.
Ben's nodding, so I think I said I think I described that accurately, and hopefully that was maybe a little helpful to people.
No, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you for giving some more context.
And I got one more thing to say. Sorry, one more thing. The Bangerter projects, there's in the range of $1.5 billion on these Bangerter interchange projects. It's worth reminding and us remembering, it's so important because this is not just about making Bangerter work better north-south. It is just as importantly about the east-west flow. So we're creating a grade separated interchange, which helps so much with east-west mobility, which those of you that work on or represent the west side of Salt Lake County know if there's one real big problem that you confront all the time in that area, it's east-west mobility. So this is just such a great investment for both north-south and east-west mobility.
I appreciate that. Is there any other questions about any of the projects? I'm happy to answer any questions that you do have about any of these projects.
Not really a question as much it is, those of you that serve local governments, many of us have in the past served local governments. And you know, I've gone through several lifetimes in that. When I first came with Wasatch Front, I was really concerned about 9,000 or 10,000 people. You know, what are you doing for my city? As a mayor, that's where my center was. That's who called me at night at 2 a.m. in the morning and said, listen, there's a dog, you know, stuff like that.
Story of my life.
Yeah, well, let me say, I've lived it for 10 years, so I understand that greatly. And then my, perspective changed a little bit. And then serving the legislature, it was more like 45,000 or sometimes 50,000, depending on what district you were in. And so I was looking very closely at that District 11, was all the way from mid-Ogden, all the way down through Davis County in some places. So that's my purview. And now I'm looking at a situation where I'm going to school again here because as a commissioner at large, I've been schooled that I don't look at Region 1, though I live there, but I really do a little bit, but I'm at large. And so in this last few commission meetings, I don't know how many of you have been able to attend those commission meetings, but we usually have a tour that takes us through that region and through these high capacity projects. I am blown away with the projects and what they are in Western Salt Lake and Utah County. We just spent last week in Washington County and the St. George area. It's amazing how much money is in these projects. We're not talking just a few million or a few thousand or a few 100,000 when I was a mayor or a few thousand. We're talking about billions upon billions of dollars in what's happening. And what happens over the next 20 or 30 or 40 years as we look at on those projections. UTA is a partner with that. And I have a great belief in that they'll be right by our side on that way. But you need to sometimes, especially on the Wasatch Front, and when you look at UDOT, you need to get outside of that small, I don't want to call it small thinking, but it's a smaller purview of those people you're serving. And when you do, you'll have that blinding flash of the obvious that happened to me in the last few months as a commissioner for UDOT. I'm learning things that I never knew existed. I mean, I love those turtles in St. George, but I haven't seen many of them. But, that corridor and that south corridor is pretty important to that whole region, as is what's happening here in the southwest areas of some of these counties, Salt Lake and Utah County, as they come together. So as you sit on this board, hopefully we're not just so looking at those cities we come from, but we're looking more on the regional situation that happens. And like I say, I'm just awed by what's going on in Utah right now, and the state, having looked at other states now, how much we're putting into those projects as a state. We are so futuristic looking, and with Wasatch Front and the other mags and all those other things we're doing so just throw that out there so you understand that my eyes have been opened like never before in the last few months as I've gone on these things. And I'm sure many of you will have this opportunity someday. So that's great input, I think, to have especially when you're in a smaller community.
It is mind-boggling as I drive through the state and see what's going on. And I mean, as a realtor, that's what I'm out doing and driving, and it's constant, and it's amazing.
Just a comment time.
You can ask me. I'm more than willing to answer.
It's not necessarily Region 2, but.
All right.
Okay. So I've just jotted down a couple of notes that what services possibly could go towards the east side of the Wasatch Front. I'm from a little city of Morgan, and that freeway was, I think, put in around 62. And it had a Mountain Green exit, a Peterson exit, and a Morgan exit. The population's over doubled, and we have a Mountain Green exit, a Peterson exit, and a Morgan exit. And by the way, the Morgan exit is not even lawful. It's like bad. So I'm just wondering, I was told when I first got put in as mayor that it won't do you any good to go to this meeting because they never consider us up here. But I said, well, that's probably because we haven't been showing up, and maybe they aren't even aware of it because we're not a squeaky wheel. But I'm just wondering how a little situation like, say, Morgan County that runs Interstate 84 all the way through it, 2 sets of tracks, it's involved heavily on the commerce of the state, just not maybe the same population base. But when we have isolated problems, it's pretty hard to say, well, because you can go up to the towers on Farmington Peak and you can look over west and you can see it's like everything going on. And on the east side where Morgan is, it looks like, oh, that's like a nice place to live. that doesn't have any traffic problems, but yet it's becoming that way. So I'm just wondering, representing the city, and our county, I'm sure Kate would pipe up, is how do we get on a list where maybe we're considered for a project that's badly needed? The problem with the projects are they cost several $1 million. And so if it's just population based, I can't see that the situation, we are getting rumor that there'll be a Mountain Green interchange. And we're also getting a rumor that they're going to shut down the exit and the entrance that's there now, which makes no sense to me, because we'll direct everything that's below in Mountain Green up to the new interchange. So we won't really relieve any traffic. So anyway, that's my soapbox. I'm sorry. I just
Hopefully Nathan's taking notes back there so that when he gets up, he can touch Mountain Green. Morgan.
Said also add the importance of right now what WFRC is doing with their long range vision and being called to those meetings and explaining what your community is doing, how it's morphing, how it's changing. By giving input at that helps us understand where you're going and helps us make that into our planning process and take those things in. So I give kudos to WFRC for holding that Wasatch Front choice and coming and being able to have those communities talk about their individual communities and give details about what's changing and what is needed in the future.
Yeah, I thank you. I completely agree with that. And we can talk more about what's going to happen in Morgan in a moment. But we, and the mayor knows this obviously really well, we work with Morgan City, Morgan County, and UDOT in that area through the RPO, the Rural Planning Organization, because the area is growing fast. And Mayor, you could tell stories about the perspectives in Morgan County and how people don't always hold the same perspective on how growth should unfold, or whether it should unfold. And the perspectives have changed over time, but I know that the priority has become the I-84 interchange. And with the Olympics coming, that has provided even more impetus to make sure that moves forward. So anyway, we can talk more about that in a moment.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So the next things I wanted to cover on this was just some of those outside of our region, some of those major projects that are coming. I know we'll hear a little bit more from Nathan on a few of these. The one that's going on right now down in our Region 3, this is Utah County, just over in Saratoga Springs area. This is the Mountain View corridor from 2100 North to Porter Rockwell, where we're building that new facility that goes out by the base around that edge of the mountain and connecting into Porter Rockwell, where the next phase is to go forward to that old Bingham that we have planned. So that's expected to be completed next fall. Then we also have a large project that's going on. The EIS was just completed for this I-15 Farmington to Salt Lake City. And there is on our line number 4, you'll see the large I-15 reconstruct from Farmington to Salt Lake City. This will be a major addition in capacity, and I'll let Region 1 kind of go into more details about that project, as well as we have a large pavement reconstruct that I want to make sure people are aware of that will be happening over this next year. And this is our I-215 reconstruct from SR 201 to North Temple, where the pavement will be completely rehabbed through that section, reconstructed, and it'll begin construction this next year. Those are the projects that we have from a capacity standpoint. You'll see that that's another $2.44 billion being spent just outside of the Salt Lake County area that we're widening and adding capacity. I do want to note that these are just the highway capacity. We also have our TTIF and our TIF active funding. That is for what UTA kind of brought up on some of theirs. There's the double tracking that's going on. There's the Mid-Valley BRT that's happening. There's the 5600 express lane for buses that are going on. They're all being funded with that state funding. So I don't want to just leave this as it's just a capacity for highways, but we also have funding that's going towards that active transportation and those other transportation modes. And with that, I just want to remind everyone, if you're ever looking to find information about our program and what's going on with it, there is this STIP app that you can go to, Inside of this, and it's a little hard to see from the distance that you guys are at, but inside of this, off to the side, it has every program of all of our funds with showing what is currently happening and what's happening in the future. The best time to go look at this is right in that February timeframe, just after session, because all of the future projects that will be presented at the STIP will be presented on here as proposed for the commission to take action on. So you'll be able to see those future years, what's coming. This is our pavement preservation projects, our reconstruct. Again, there's a tab underneath there for active transportation. That's where you'll find those TTIF, those traffic TIF active projects. You'll also find underneath there a tab that says other. That's where you can find all of these MPO program projects. So if you're looking at when is my project supposed to be happening, what years are those happening, you can find the information here with the dollar amounts that are allocated to it. So this is a great resource for you guys that are looking for what's happening in the future and to understand what's happening around your projects. This does just look out, sorry, 5 years. So it isn't looking out at that long range. That's where Andrew is 100% correct about. If you're looking at that long range plan, what WFRC is putting together, that's where you'd have to go find the unified plan to be able to see those farther out projects. These are what are programmed and actually have funding for them. Any questions on the STIP app or anything that was presented?
Okay.
Thank you so much. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Kendall.
it.
Appreciate it. Nathan, you want to talk Region 1? That's my favorite.
Is it? Yeah. My name's Nathan Peterson. I am the Deputy Director for Region 1, my program manager. Yep, we're on. Was unable to be here today, so you have me, which is hopefully a good thing. Just so you know, Region 1 is Davis County, Weber County, Morgan County, Box Elder County, Rich County, and Cache County. So that whole northern kind of panhandle of the state of Utah, that's Region 1. We are growing rapidly, not just in the WFRC area, but in all areas of northern Utah. So before I start the presentation, I just want to talk a little bit about the Prairie Trail, because I do have some additional information. I do apologize, Commissioner D. I was frantically looking for information when you were talking, so I may not have caught all of your question. But on that bid, we did receive 5 bidders. So which is actually a really good bid. There was a wide range of probably $1 million between all the bidders, which tells me you had some contractors that were aggressively seeking the bid and some that were maybe not as hungry, maybe looking for a little larger profit margin in that bid. We're happy to receive the funding and to be able to go to award on that project. And it will be a great project. It has been one that's been on the books for a long time, which has kind of drove some of the cost. That's some of the challenges that we have with some of our projects. They get programmed really early. And as things progress over the years, the prices escalate, but you also need to remember that design is a process of discovery. And that's something that happened on that Prairie Trail. As they were in design, they discovered a lot of issues that they did not see in the concept phase, which they had to address in the design phase. You'll see in the presentation today, I have about 10 slides. I want to go over some of our major capacity projects in Region 1. And I do that because those are the projects that we get a lot of questions on. Those are the high impact projects, impact a lot of people, a lot of jurisdictions, and they're very noticeable. So I think it's important that you kind of have a general sense of schedule and budget and scope of those projects. But just because they're the heavy transportation type of projects, roadway projects, does not mean that Region 1 is just a road building region. I mean, we have other TTIF projects that we are actively engaged, like the strategic double tracking up in the Davis County area. Brian Allen out of the central office has been in heavy coordination with UTA and local partners on that. It's a project we're really excited to see come up in the Davis County area. And we have other T-active and T-TIF type projects, which are a little smaller in nature, which we are actively in the process of trying to deliver as quickly as we can. But let's go ahead and start with the big dog. I call that the I-15 Farmington to Salt Lake reconstruction project. It is currently programmed at about $1.7 billion. Definitely the largest project that has ever been in the Region 1 area. although this is a unique project for UDOT because it does span 2 regions. And so I get to work with my counterpart in Region 2 quite frequently. The team currently has just received the sign rod in October. The environmental work is done and is in active mode of trying to figure out what that contract will look like. And they will go through a process of looking at what is important and what should they be prescriptive on, what should they not be prescriptive on, because it's a balance of, okay, we need to fulfill the purpose and need, and we have standards and specifications to build roadways. However, we also want an environment where we can spawn innovation to help provide us a cheaper project, but maybe not always necessarily a lower cost project, but a project that maybe provides additional value to the department and the citizens of Utah. And that could be additional scope or a different way of looking at things, maybe an innovative interchange or way that we look at our pavement or our signage. It could be lots of different things. That project team is actively in that process, and they have a goal of trying to start construction in early 2027, but that is a heavy lift, and there'll be a lot of press releases and a lot of information that'll be forthcoming on that project. Kind of running the TV and my laptop. My eyes are starting to get a little aged, and I need to look at my laptop so I have my notes in a little more clarity. Shepherd Lane, I don't know if you're in the Weber Davis County area, and on your way to the meeting today, you went through a large construction zone there in Shepherd Lane area. It is a large interchange project. Shepherd Lane was just kind of over the I-15. This will be a full access interchange, which will have a access over the tracks and down to the west. If you know Farmington in that area, that Station Park area is growing to that northwest quadrant quite a bit and is becoming heavily populated with commercial and residential, which provides a lot, which causes a lot of congestion and whatnot on Park Lane. And the idea here is to provide an additional full service interchange, which can eliminate some or alleviate some of that pressure at Park Lane. Along with that, Shepherd Lane project, there's also been appropriation to help provide pedestrian traffic along Park Lane. So some bridges over the I-15 area and along Park Lane to try to get in that Station Park area, not just for retail and commerce, but we also have the front runner station there. So help with additional modes and that ability for additional modes of transportation in that Farmington area. And once you're on that front runner, you have full access up and along the Wasatch Front. If Mayor from Roy was here, he would probably rah-rah this project. We've all heard, man, Dare Roy talk about this project, 5600 South. This project, this interchange project is twofold. It is a new interchange at 5600 South, which will provide access into Hill Air Force Base. If you've ever been in that Clearfield area, you know 650 at quitting time for Hillfield can become very congested. There has been a lot of improvements in that Clearfield area and on Hillfield Hill Air Force Base that has generated a lot of jobs and a lot of retail, and there's just a lot more trips in that area. And so this interchange will help provide additional access to the base, but it also provides additional access out west with the widening of 5600 South from a 3-lane section to a 5-lane section. Its western terminus will be SR 108, 3500 west out there in the western Roy area. And like Andrew was talking about, the Bangerter highways, and I'll talk a little bit about that with our SR 108 projects. You need that north-south. I mean, we often complain about our north-south mobility throughout the valley, but a critical component of it is to get east-west. You need those additional options other than I-15 to be able to go north and west. So this will provide not just the interchange on 5600 South, but a east-west route that's been improved with an improved intersection at at Main Street, SR 126, and that's currently programmed at 360 million.
Nathan, Mayor Dandoy from Roy City wasn't here to give you a rah-rah. He would if he was here, but Commissioner Harvey from Weber County did give you a big thumbs up
Yep.
on this project. So that's the city and the county and UDOT working together. Hey, Nathan, just do us a favor, keep the mic a little closer to your mouth because we really want to hear
Okay.
everything you have to say.
All right.
Okay?
I'm not used to this type of mic, so I apologize. Thank you for that. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. And the mayor would also say that these types of projects are a large coordinated effort. I mean, we know how long that mayor has been working for that project with WFRC, local politicians, with the department to try to get that programmed. And that's valuable. I mean, these partnerships are very valuable to get this type of work done. Just to the south of that, we have another proposed project. It's very similar to the 5600 South interchange. That is a new 1800 North interchange and corridor widening, very similar to 5600 South. This is a brand new interchange. If you have driven I-15 over the years, you remember that old U.S. Army locomotive shop. That is no longer there, and that will be a future location for this interchange. So I-15 will move to the east, which will give us some separation from Main Street, which is very much needed for operations along Main Street, but it will also widen 1800 North going out to SR 108 again, which is out in that Clinton area.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
while you're like heading towards that? Part of that reconstruction area is also going to be having, I think this is what Mayor Dandoy would also say, is that active transportation piece that is part of that corridor that you just talked about.
Mhm.
Maybe you could kind of talk about that more, or is that pretty much where that's at, or is that going to be included in this?
To my knowledge, that is all being included. I mean, there's several trails, the old DNRG rail trail system that goes through there, that there's being trails that are being, it's a path that is along the corridor, which will help with some connection. I know that Clinton was awarded some money for a underpassing under SR 108, which is a project which will help tie those trails on the east side of 108 out to the western side of Davis and Weber County, which has a progressing trail system that's going out there. So a critical component for that connection, and that will be included on our SR 108 project. So yes, that is something, and thank you for bringing that up, that's being designed and worked into those projects.
That's the three-gate trail, the one that MIDA purchased.
Well, three-gate trail is in that study phase, and that is something that is also being looked at.
That's what she's talking about.
Yeah, it's a separate facility.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking about SR 108 going, 1800 North paralleling. Thank you, Commissioner Harvey, for that clarification. Give you the thumbs up today. SR 108 has been a project that we've been working on probably for 15 to 18 years. Often when you get large projects, there's just not enough resources to do the entire project, so you have to look at phases. SR 108 from 300 North to 1800 North is one of those phases. It is current construction and is anticipated to be complete the end of 2025. It's programmed at 86 million, and that will provide a 5-lane section similar to what you see in the Syracuse area up to about 1800 North up in the Clinton area. And right after that is from 1800 North up into Northern Roy. We will have another segment of 1800 of SR 108, which is currently in design and in right-of-way acquisition, which will be ready for construction in 2027, and that will most likely be a 2-year project. It's currently programmed at 123 million. But this kind of will complete the majority of SR 108, which will give us that northern north to south corridor on that west side of Weber and Davis County. And obviously those improved alignments of 1800 North, 5600 South will help us with that complete grid system. You know, that's something that we can't emphasize enough, and probably something you can take back to your planning commissions and your city council as you look at development. Think of those of those grid systems to help out with transportation, to get people to the major collectors and arterials and to transit. So it's something that we need to be looking at, and it just helps with the overall operations of an area. Another project that has been on the books for a long period of time in the Ogden City area is the 24th Street interchange. This is currently a half interchange, and this project will make it a full interchange, so you'll have full movements north and southbound. It's been one that's been in the works for a long time. If you are at all familiar with the area, you'll notice that a major landmark of Weber County is no longer there. The Farmers Grain Co-op, the large white granary, is finally been demolished, and that has added some nuances to this project that prior to that we had to avoid. And so the project team has been looking to try to redesign to try to maximize some efficiencies by not having to avoid that granary to help lower the cost of the project. So it's kind of slowed the project down, but for a good reason. I know that this is saying construction of summer of 2027. Just understand that that is currently in a reevaluation phase, and that they are looking at some additional scope items because of the granary being gone. But also understand that this area has a large amount of railroad impacts, and those negotiations are very lengthy and can take some time. So if there's any construction in 2027, it may be with the railroad to try to relocate the railroad prior to the heavy work with the interchange on I-15, which I could foresee being more in that 2028, 2029 timeframe. Okay, not to forget our neighbors up in Box Elder County, which is the northern area of Wasatch Front, up in the Brigham City area. We have a reconstruction of US 89 through the Willard area. This is currently out to bid, and we're hopeful to have construction beginning next year. This will improve the pavement and the shoulders and the drainage system out through there and some of the access locations. If you've been up on the Fruitway, you know that those driveways are right there on the road, and we're trying to delineate those driveways better and make it a little safer corridor for both active transportation and for the vehicles. It's programmed at $58 million, and that is out to bid right now. A project that Commissioner D is probably looking forward to, the US 89 I-84 interchange replacement project. As you know, yeah, probably got a thumbs up over there too. As US 89 through Davis County was complete, it left this section right at the mouth of Weber Canyon. And it is been going through the environmental phase, and that was complete October of this year. So we are now in that process of beginning our design. I know our project team has been looking at delivery method, and they would like to model it similar to what the US 89 delivery method was, and that is a progressive design build. What that simply means is that the department will enter a contract with a contractor and a designer who are a member of the same team, which allows us better collaboration through the design phase. And we also have a contractor who is invested in trying to find efficiencies and to help us with construction phasing and methodology, which helps us receive a lower bid in theory. We are in that process of trying to come up with that contract. It is currently programmed at $250 million, and we're hopeful to have construction going by 2027. This is phase 1 and phase 2 of that project, which is new interchange at I-84 and US 89, and also work at the railroad bridges that cross over US 89. The replacement of those to provide additional width, which helps us with mobility up and along US 89. So a project which we're really excited for and look forward to. This will also help some of those residents up in the Morgan County area. You've traveled that, Mayor, and know that sometimes that can be a little bit of a headache. with the on-ramp coming on right there onto I-84, right there at the river. And so we're looking at trying to improve that situation. This will also provide a better connection to US 89. So as those residents come to and from Morgan County, that they can use that US 89 expressway more efficiently. I do not have a slide for Mountain Green, but it's probably appropriate to talk about Mountain Green right now. Another one of our projects is that Mountain Green interchange. It's currently programmed for $5 million. We are active in the environmental phase, and we are looking at alternatives. And when I say alternatives, it's basically a new interchange, basically at the rest stop area. And that will replace the existing Mountain Green interchange with a full access interchange. The current one, as you know, is a half interchange. And so it's kind of an interchange that's split between Mountain Green and Peterson. And so this will provide a more direct route up to the Snow Basin area because it will provide a direct connection to Trappers Loop and will give us both on and off ramps in all directions at the interstate. So a project that we're looking forward to. We should have environmental cleared by the first part of next year, and then we'll be looking for program for construction. I'm sure there'll be a lot of momentum in that area because of the forthcoming Olympics, but it's a project that could probably be built within 2 construction seasons, so there is some time. Currently, we do not have construction dollars assigned to that, but that will help with some of the future needs for that Mountain Green area in Morgan County. I don't know if you have any additional questions. Okay, that's fine. We could probably talk more specifics about the project after. And I believe this is continuation of the West Davis corridor with the opening of West Davis. When that was delivered, they were not able to get all the way up to 1800 North. 1800 North was the northern terminus of that environmental document. And so it left that section from 1800 North down to SR 193. So this project is currently in design. It's currently programmed around $20 million. There'll be additional money that'll be added to that, I'm sure, for that construction. They are about 50% the way through the design process. And we're hopeful that construction could begin on that in as early as 2026. There's a lot of right-of-way that has to be purchased, and we need to finalize that design, which will just be another addition to that West Davis corridor, which is a great northwest, western alternative for Weber and Davis counties. And with that, it seems like I've been up here a long time. But I will open it up for questions, not just on these projects, but if you have any other transportation-related questions for my region for that Davis-Weber County area.
The one that's not on there is future plans at 650 North.
Mhm.
As MIDA now pushes for development at that portion and is courting some big office users.
Yep.
Where does that sit in the long-range plan there?
That, I believe, and I wish my planner was here right now, but I believe that is still in phase 1 of the plan. It's unprogrammed right now. We have several interchanges. I would say 650 and 2700 North up in that Pleasant View area are probably the 2 that are on our radar. They are the most congested interchanges for Region 1, and they are being looked at. And we're hopeful for programming in the future for those interchanges, probably a reconstruction type project.
Okay, I just know we put a Band-Aid on it.
Yep.
and
Yep,
a
and we
couple of-
we
a
got some
couple of
work going out there
Band-Aids.
now with some additional width underneath the bridge. And we know that was just a short-term project. It is on our long-range horizon, though.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Harvey?
For the rest of this committee too, Nathan, you're so good at what you do, and we're so glad that you're back in Region 1. This was a wonderful report. They're just, and I'm glad to know that those 2 projects, and you mentioned they are at least on phase 1, and they're not down the road a little further. The only other one that is up kind of in question is that, with the addition to the potential, well, they're starting on the first phase, the first billion of America First Credit Union there on Cozy Dale Lane in Riverdale. And then that bridge right around in there, that's already programmed. It was going to go. Where are we with that phase right there? I think that is 4,400 South in Riverdale. Is that right?
Yep,
That's right.
yep.
There's a lot of numbers. Holy
Oh, I
cow.
know.
You guys got numbers all over the place.
4,400 South, I mean, there is currently a project to replace that structure along with the two bridges on I-84, which is kind of in that northern apex of that triangle, to help widen those bridges, to help Riverdale with 4,400 as they cross I-15 and go underneath I-84. But just so you know, we also have a study within the region where we are looking at the Riverdale interchange and how that new complex, that America First complex interacts with I-15, the Riverdale interchange, and Main Street, SR 126. We're about halfway through that study. We're looking at long range and short range types of projects. And I think that's something that we could probably follow up with the county or whomever at a future date once we finalize that study. So something that we are actively looking at. There's a lot of needs. There's a lot of needs right there in that
Unbelievable.
area. Yep.
Yeah, just for the board again, that's 5,000 to 6,000 users going to work and from work for America First Credit Union. It's going to be a campus be a huge.
Yeah,
campus.
it's a very aggressive plan that they have.
Yeah.
Now, I do think that its time frame is what they have communicated to us is over the next 20 years, but they're actively in there right now
Yeah.
and doing a lot of
Correct.
additions. Yep.
I just wanted to play off of that a little bit as well. We currently do have bus service up in that area, and we've been in talks and discussions with America First on their phases of the building of that. And so I'm excited to see how this study plays out as well. I think that that can help with efficiencies potentially. So I just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
And there, the main concern is that 1500 South intersection on Riverdale Road. I mean, with that type of traffic, that being the only ingress and egress for that development, there's a lot of pressure to that intersection. So what do you do? And those are the questions that we have right now and that we're trying to come up with a solution with.
One more thing, I appreciate you addressing 84 and 89 in this. Just yesterday, if you know where Manor Care is in South Ogden,
Okay.
there, that traffic was backed up about 5:10 PM from Uinta all the way up to Manor Care last night, which is 3
Yeah.
miles.
Yep, it's a heavily congested area of the region. I mean, that US 89. Like I said, the project that I presented is phase 1, phase 2. There is this phase 3 that is not programmed, and that's that Skyline Drive area, looking at improvements there. So,
Thank you.
Have something else?
I know we're here talking about transportation, but if you ask most Utahns, what is the most pressing issue that we're confronting right now, they would say housing.
Yeah.
And you've got this slide up showing the extension of West Davis corridor, and it just reminded me, we had, as most of you know, most of you participated, we had our Wasatch Choice Vision workshops. Kendall, you mentioned this before, around the region over the last 2 months or so. Further discussion coming in Tooele and Morgan County. And along up in Weber County, we were talking about the West Davis corridor and the construction of that facility, the improvement of that facility. There's significant development happening around the interchanges there, including housing development that's occurring. And so these facilities to some extent help unlock land that was sort of previously undevelopable to enable more housing to come online. And then rather than having those folks to get to jobs, to get to shopping, whatever, to have to go east-west on more of the local roads, they're able to navigate the majority of the region via these UDOT facilities. Add to that, and Commissioner Harvey, I know you've been really involved in this, is the promotion of housing that's at a lower price point, more affordable housing, using some of the tools that the state has created. And so I don't remember, Commissioner, if the project that you guys just kicked off with the HB 572 state support is right in the vicinity of the West Davis corridor. But the reason I just bring that up is because there's a lot of things happening together. Transportation investment, housing development, assistance, to bring more affordable units online. And, Mayor Shepard's really involved in this. as well. So we at WFRC, we try to think about the linkages between all of these issues, where people live, where they work, and the transportation system as well.
No, that is a good point, that development, I think it's on up in the northern Weber County area, that affordable housing area, will place a lot of pressure on that 2700 North interchange. So it's one of those interchanges like 650 that we have our eye on because of those additional trips. It just goes to show that it's not just a point location, though. It's just not an interchange. I mean, this is a system in completeness, in whole. And so that's why it's important that we look as planners and engineers at that complete grid system. We need to provide other options, not just other roads, but other options for transportation with our partners with like UTA and active transportation. It's a complete system.
Absolutely. Thank you both. We appreciate that, and as well as UTA. That is it. The last item on our agenda is just a note that I know all of you are looking forward to June's Transcom meeting next year. And I know, Commissioner, you've got that on your calendar marked out, that it's on the June 26th. We'd like to move that to June 16th. So, or not June 6th, June 19th. So as long as everyone's okay with that, and it's not a major conflict on your calendars, let us know if that's a problem, but otherwise we are going to change that date. You'll get a different calendar invite for that.
With a little background on that, it is Juneteenth. However, the state observes the holiday on the Monday prior.
Yes.
So, but if any of your agencies are also observing on the 19th or instead of, let us know.
Very good.
I also have one more thing to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For those of you that drove, you noticed our parking is different. We're prepared to help you get all set up on that. On the system, you'll need your license plate number and you'll input credit card information, but we have the validation that you can scan so that you won't incur any charges. It's just a bit of a process, so our team will help.
Yeah.
And once you do it, you never have to do it again.
And that goes throughout the whole.
Unless you change cars. And there are other parking metropolis agent
Yes.
areas around that you can use. And we can always validate for you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, we're done. Thank you.